Welcome to Bits of Signum, a podcast that dives into the intersection of gaming, AI, and Web3. In each episode, we host titans of innovation and thought leadership, and we cover the many new online economies and technologies that are bubbling up in the metaverse. The conversations explore new business models with the leaders who are shaping the future. I'm your host and founder of Signum Growth, Angela Dalton.
And I'm your co-host, Evan Castelli, Web3 analyst at Signum Growth.
Welcome back, everyone, to Bits of Signum podcast. I'm so excited that we have Marguerite Decourcelle here today. I've known you for a long time, since around 2018, 2019. You are one of the OGs in crypto, one of the OGs in crypto gaming for sure. You have a really exciting news story in AI, so we're hoping to just dive in. But before we do that, I would love to have you explain the backstory on your name, which is so well known. Not your name, Marguerite Decourcelle, but Coin Artist on Twitter.
Sure, thanks, Angela. So Coin Artist came from my first adventures into creative technology. I'm a classically trained artist in fine art, and went down the crypto rabbit hole back in 2012, and from that started thinking about creative applications of blockchain and Bitcoin, in thinking about its use cases as being this permissionless technology and distributed systems. So anyways, I started making creative work way back then that are akin to online digital treasure hunts, where I was weaving in the Bitcoin private key into art, both physical and digital art, for people then to use puzzle mechanics to solve the Bitcoin and have like this 5 Bitcoin bounty in which they'd walk away from something that was like a game. And so that early work then progressed to me making more and more complex applications that essentially became games. So by January 2018, I launched Blockade Games, and we were like using NFTs as a non-financial sort of internet play toy for these gaming applications, and unlocking various smart contracts that were creative in nature, and using like different aspects of cooperative gameplay. So ways you have to send tokens across various different wallets in certain patterns, and then leading to winning additional prizes or maturing your NFTs. So like really, really nuanced sort of applications that very small audience, essentially, even though we did try to obfuscate the blockchain side of it so that it was very accessible and a wide door for people to be able to participate in, it still was very niche in the sense that, I mean, how many people want to geek out about creative smart contracts in this sort of this way? So, but with that, we still were pretty successful in Plasma Bears. Was one of our early IPs, the first free-to-play blockchain game back in 2018. Was kind of like a Build-A-Bear sort of gameplay with text adventure. And then Neon District had over 500,000 unique asset holders. So just a completely free-to-play game in which people did an RPG, PvP sort of gameplay with these assets also. Anyways, from those adventures, I did learn some lessons that led me to today.
And I would love to go from, meeting you back when you were creating Neon District to just jump straight to today, because the name of your project was Blockade Games, and now it's Blockade Labs. Can you talk about that transition and the new path that you're on?
Sure. So I guess I have to give a little context to this, that so the transition to Blockade Labs was an ML team with a few founders on it from people I knew back in 2018. And so while I went the gaming route, they went AI and ML technology route. And they had showed to me a creative co-creation platform early last year. And with it basically was this new way of thinking about content, so user-generated content, creative content, just big content faucet. And I was able to make game assets that were usable in our test island for our game, also like the animation pipeline, within just a few minutes. So it had enough control over the content you could generate from this new type of engine. Um, with that, I basically realized that some of the pain points that we had experienced as a game company were going to be quickly absolved in a way that we'd be able to ideate faster. So, taking idea of what's shared across the artistic team, bringing that to life faster to be able to talk to it in a way that's more tangible alongside the game design elements and the various mechanics we're thinking of for the game engine. So be able to have this content faster at our fingertips meant we're going to be able to play a lot more to get something fun so that a user can start playing faster also. So us to be able to ideate, iterate, and then be testing. So people, and this is something I found too with something we're working on currently, is this is something a lot of people are really excited about, is bringing an idea to life as fast as possible and then really vetting to see if that idea has any legs. Like, is this a viably fun, good idea or not? Usually you don't get to that point until you've really invested so much time on something that you get stuck in this sunk cost fallacy where you're not sure if you should keep going, but you've already spent $100,000 of your own personal money, so maybe you should keep going. But so there's a lot of creatives and developers very excited for what we can do with this sort of technology.
Maybe also just talk about the game development process and what part of the game development process does Blockade Labs come in, and then tell us about Skyboxes. Maybe we should just start there with the idea that we have a lot of game industry people who listen to this podcast. Many who might be listening don't know all the lingo in games. So if you could just tell us a little bit about Skyboxes and what part of the game development process you're in.
We used to create these indie game titles, and with this new sort of capability of creating the assets, we sat back and did some market research on what would be the most effective place for us to take what the ML team had created to service this creation pipeline or content creation pipeline. And so something that's very unique to us and something that we are the only ones to do today is we serve 6K high resolution panoramic backdrops essentially for virtual worlds. And this is known as skyboxes or skydomes, which then are these wrappers around your 3D environment space in a lot of like 3D software or 3D engines. And so the thing about this skyboxes is they're very limited and generic in their current offering because they're notoriously very difficult to make. And also like artists just don't like making them. And so in this endeavor, we actually have gotten very little pushback on anybody from the creative or artist side because this actually takes a part of the process that nobody really liked doing and gives people something they like faster, and then they can get to their fun creative part more easily. So anyways, what we've seen with the skyboxes, we went to market with this capability. It takes a few seconds for a user to put in a text prompt describing a world. Then you're all of a sudden in this either via our API or the web app, you're seeing a 360 virtual image, like picture, JPEG or PNG, generated around you in basically 10 seconds or less. And then you can export this. It can come with depth information, so it can have 3D characteristics with it for if you, let's say you need mesh information within a 3D engine to like create terrain. So anyways, the whole though going after and basically obsoleting this idea of needing skyboxes as asset packs in the store. Instead of now you have a generator or an engine in which you can create it yourself. So with that, it's actually opened up and democratized this whole process of skyboxes and skybox creation, similar to how when Midjourney came out, the democratization of 2D illustration, or with 11 Labs democratized voice acting. Similarly, now we are starting to democratize the beginnings of world building. So anyways, I could talk more about that, but that's essentially what we've done to date. And we've had over 1 million users generate over 10 million of these skyboxes using Blockade.
That is so exciting. 1 million users generating 10 million skyboxes. Those are real numbers. Give us a vision of what this is. So I sit down and I'm a world builder. And what I love about the democratization part of this is one of our big mantras is creators to the front of the line and developers to the front of the line, and this idea that the game development process you know, including with these new creator platforms like Epic's UEFN and Roblox and everywhere. More and more and more people are going to be creating games. So give us a visual here. I'm a game developer, or even my 12-year-old who could do this probably. Sit down and I type in what? Like what would be a good example?
Oh man, you can. So one of the really cool things about these sort of platforms is you don't have to get like you don't have to stay attached to what you know. You can push the
Mm.
boundaries of, inspiration by MC Escher, but Mesopotamia and and lava pits. We and within our app have a sketch tool. So it's a 360 360 editor essentially, and with it comes a sketch tool where you can draw in context of structures and objects, and then you can use the prompt, which then the AI has contextual awareness over. Even if I drew a house and I didn't put house in the prompt, the AI knows that that is a house that I'm referencing and will populate it with information to create a house. So it's like if you imagine it like an autocomplete. I'm starting the idea, and then the AI is finishing the rest of my thought. Um, and
Wow.
and so we have different things like style remix as well. So you can iterate on it's this house in a valley, but now I want that same scene, but I want it to be snowing. So I can add snowing to my prompt, and it's using this underlying structure to still hold that intact, but now add additional information for a snowy scene.
Is it game engine dependent, or does this technology work with any game engine, any other kind of gaming tools like Blender, etc.?
Exactly. Yep. So this is independent. It works in parallel with any of your favorite world building workflows. And what we see today is we have users basically creating these environments and importing them into Roblox. And then also we are an Nvidia Omniverse connector. So we actually, Angela, I don't know if you saw this, but Jensen presented showcasing Blockade at the SIGGRAPH keynote this a month or so ago with our ability to basically satisfy the need for digital twin environment simulation so it's not just gaming. We do basically move into spaces of anyone who is thinking about virtual world building and needs content for that. So it's been interesting, and since we did start in focusing on gaming, the UGC applications are actually pretty broad.
That's interesting. So tell us more about this NVIDIA, um, you know, collaboration or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it sounds very exciting given they're so far ahead.
We actually, so I have there's a couple of really exciting things we're doing with them that they haven't announced yet, so those are
Okay.
secret. but
Okay. We will have you back.
yeah, but the we developed a new we an updated API for them specifically for our HDRI. So it's a 16-bit download, whereas right now we're using 8-bit for our color for the 5D color space. But anyways, with that path is really interesting because of their work that they're doing in AI agents. And I can't say more about it other than that. But when we think of
Okay.
world building and the tools and how we're going to create these spaces and the information and data we want to harvest from these environments, especially for simulation purposes, it's really neat to think about how we might also use AI agents.
Just what we've been talking, I just made a few different versions and I added in Mesopotamia, and it's very fast and it's very cool to use. But I'm not a game designer at all. I mean, I went to art school, I draw and paint and stuff. But this just seems cool to use for brainstorming and even in like a school setting, like helping kids like think about how a book might look or something like that. Have you seen any kind of off the wall uses of this that you weren't really expecting people to do with it?
Actually, yeah. I've seen a ton of use cases here that were unexpected. What you just picked up there on the education applications, we recently partnered with a company called ThingLink, which is a no-code platform, uses various different types of tools for students to create things like virtual tours, games, immersive storytelling. But with that, they did a direct integration with us, and we're seeing this bundle sell with higher education. And I guess I wasn't really expecting there to be such a market there. And when you're an entrepreneur, you're not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go make so much money in the education space,
Hmm.
but there's a big demand there. So it's been pretty cool with all these requests for teachers coming in, and they want to use this tool for so and so to help with educating something, or for training purposes. So not to off of that train of thought is, we have a lab and I'm putting together a virtual simulation of how to train my PhD students within this lab, and so that's been a neat development. But I would say one of the surprising characteristics about this tool is that there's an underlying healing, therapeutic quality to it. So people will come and generate just for fun. They will do it for relaxation, for the calming uh, for the calming experience that they have in this creation workflow. But so there's rehabilitation centers, people using it for creating virtual spaces, not virtual, but like real world simulated 3D spaces in rooms like uh, nursing homes to people recovering from trauma, both physical and emotional. So, like, that has been pretty interesting to think about creativity as a means of healing. Which, I mean, we know that there are these applications today, but I wasn't expecting this tool to be serving that need. But it does make sense in that we are the easiest, basically, onboarding possible to get to this sort of creative work, like mental workflow of world building. And just it turns out that a lot of people just really want to make worlds, not really for even another, like a business, but just they have ideas and they want to see them expressed.
That's wonderful. It's really going to be exciting to see some of these applications that you didn't even think about. What are you seeing on the IP rights side in terms of the backdrops for these worlds? Have you seen them ever kind of surface images that make you think, wait a minute, do we have rights for this? Are there any copyright issues here? Because that seems to be a question that we keep getting from investors and others. So I'd love for you to address that.
So we're a little bit different, I think, than some of the existing products where we used stable diffusion at our base to help build out the contextual awareness for our AI about basically what could potentially be in our data set. So our actual data set is something that we have created from both 360 drone image capture to our own game engine that we created, and then also took in like virtual screen grab captures from these 3D spaces, and then we went through and highly curated our entire data set so that while you might be drawing a house, it's going to only be using our data set for the actual image production, even though it might be referencing the stable's latent space for understanding what it is that you were trying to create, if that makes sense. So for us, you would probably have a very difficult time generating anything that is not completely permissioned for you to use.
So you kind of have a thin layer between and Stable Diffusion and Blockade Labs that you control, that you can, or that you've curated. I think curate is a good word for that.
Yeah.
And also, I would think with Skyboxes, because it's a lot of look and feel and backdrops and skies, truly skies, grounds, insides of trains, etc. There wouldn't be. It's not like generating an object that one would expect to have kind of a brand on it or something like that. So interesting.
We do try to move away from like encouraging people to create environments, and this is something we will improve with our product as we go, like for people to understand that this is not meant for object creation, like isolated object creation or even character creation. So when people try to do that, since it's not really trained for that, those always come out a little bit messier than really focusing on the environment. So that's going to be something that we continue to improve on. But I also think very soon we'll have a 3D viewer. So we're moving more into the 3D space. And when you can have the 3D viewer of the environments, but then you also can have drag and drop with 3D objects. So you'll be able to drag and drop 3D objects into that space and then control the lighting and the environment around it. I think that'll be effective in helping users understand that, they're focusing on the environment and not like everything in the scene.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, how does Skybox fit, or Blockade Labs as a whole, fit into other workflows? Like you mentioned how you can possibly bring the panoramic imagery into meshes, so they could bring them into other game engines, that sort of thing. But for character design or object design, would Skybox kind of work in tandem with another AI creation tool or just other game development tool?
Yes. So we definitely think of ourselves as being a modular solution that can fit in with other types of either existing workflows today that may be traditional or using experimental generative AI solutions. The focus on what we do. So Skybox is being pretty much a universal solution that exists in all 3D software, then allows us just to focus on that slice. But then, like we were talking about earlier, extracting the 3D information. Um, we worked with Intel on a paper that is about basically generating the depth information and the image information all at time of generation you have this data available. And so even encoding on the x and y axis of each pixel, if the pixels exist in 3D space, then how would the AI arrange and create and generate accordingly? So that is how we're thinking about moving into the 3D AI, generative AI space, whereas most companies today are still thinking about flat images, and that's how they generate. So even in our existing product today, you can download the depth map, which then allows you to generate the mesh, and soon we'll have that completely automated. But then that mesh, you can then have like an increased polygon count function. So to keep basically starting to move into level design, not just the 360 bubble, but how do you then keep expanding out and adding additional content and connecting these pieces together? So yeah, I guess like that is a differentiator for us compared to another existing image generator today.
And what do you think the go to market will be? Are you in experimental mode in terms of all these different, Skybox users, like you mentioned, education and obviously gaming and world building? Is the go to market really to tap into one of those? Is it to that you might not even realize needs a lot of these and kind of charge by the skybox, or is it more, would people be buying these for their own developers? How do you think about the go to market in the future?
Yeah, so we like I said earlier, we have the API available, and then we have the web app, which allows you to generate and export, and then take those into wherever you might be having your workflow. The go to market for us, so actually, if you're familiar with UGC platforms, there's
Mm-hmm.
often a chicken and egg dilemma where someone wants to be like a tools first sort of platform, and how historically that's seen as not a good idea, since you need the users and a reason to come capture the users, to retain them, and for a whole purpose for what are they doing with your user generated content. So what we have seen is that we're kind of getting by with, since generating the worlds are inherently fun, they act somewhat like a loot box, that we have acquired and amassed, like I said earlier, over 1 million users just generating this content. So we're realizing that we have the opportunity for a larger UGC platform play in addition to marketplace. So bringing all of this content creation together, in which you can take and service your other platforms with this content, but also doing direct integration. So we have conversations like with Roblox. You can take your 20 steps that they have for their platform to create these background environments, which is this sort of isolated process in their entire workflow for those users when they're creating their environments. Or you could just use something like us, where that was a one-stop shop for the user, and now the steps for that user to be successful just went way lower. So their chances of their user base being creators now went up exponentially. So it's currently, they have like 2% of their entire user base are creators. But if you could make users successful in creating environments within 3 minutes of trying to make an environment, how many of those users would now want to also be creators and participate in that ecosystem? So we actually see our ability to be one of the most easy to use, successful platforms for people to have this experience, and then build up on top of that with other world building capabilities that people might want to use for fun. So yeah, I'd say like our go to market is basically the Skybox as a loot box model, just because it's
Skybox
fun.
is a loot box. I love that. It's
Yeah.
yeah, and also you could go. I mean, it's really going to be up to the creators to kind of try it out and adopt it. On so Roblox, UEFN, what about Unity?
So we have a Unity SDK. We have people creating with Unity. We are a Unity verified solutions partner,
Hmm.
and negotiating with them on that plugin going live. Unity's been having a hard time, so they're not as friendly as somebody like Unreal, who just lets you put whatever up in their marketplace without having to
Mm.
monetize it. So what we do love though is the fact that our tool is so friendly with, like, for example, even just lightweight with the web app generations, that we're most of our users are coming in through the web, because you're tapping into the no coders, the people that really want to create these worlds. So we're basically straddling the line right now on the no coders who are generating worlds and what they can do with it from there. So then they're funneling to different no code platforms. And then also your developers who like this capability in Unity and Unreal, but like, really targeting a developer market is not a super, unless we were going to be a competitive game engine, that's not really the most lucrative play for what we're developing. It doesn't unlock the most users, and I don't just
Hmm.
mean lucrative like that's what we're the most interested in. It's more like we want to empower and inspire users, and so where are those users going to be? And for us, it's the ones that have never had this opportunity before.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
absolutely. I mean, the number of people that are going to be growing up on these creator platforms is just going to be mind-boggling to people, I think. I mean, we have conversations with with people in the gaming industry that aren't even sure if this is going to be a genre, and we think it's going to be, you know, as big as, I mean, it's going to be massive in gaming because it's bringing in this whole new crop of people who don't need to really be coders. Could be, you know, artists, could be musicians, could be a lot of different, you know, things, not just hardcore gamers. So it's really, really exciting to see. And do you see, so you mentioned Roblox earlier. How do you, you know, they've been around for 17 years. How are they viewing all of this kind of explosion of tools? Are they quickly integrating them, or are they leaving? Is it a pretty open platform? Do they create them themselves? Can you just describe kind of how they might be similar or different given their history?
with Roblox, Angela.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing with Roblox is they're experimenting with, I think, generative AI and like scripting of their different textures on their known existing models or templates. So they can have almost like a AI co-pilot for their world building, which is what I believe makes the most sense for them. But I definitely think that the like easy to use, like world, like user idea to world creation process
Mm-hmm.
is still going to have to be easier than that, because you need to be able to, something we're thinking about with our 360 editor is you create the world and then you can use the AI to segment all the different layers and the asset library identification. The AI can do all of this. So if you do it super easy where, oh, that's the environment I have the ability to edit different areas of it using additional AI tooling. And then from that, it can export into engines and auto populate with the various different, like the ways that you want to segment it. So if this is the background, this is the foreground, this is the tree object, this is the 3D. And so that jump from world to like playable structured world, I think is going to be what users really want, because if you still land them into a creator tool and they still have to figure out what everything is called and what the
Mm.
things are, they're still going to get stuck with understanding how to be effective of getting what they want. So I think you're going to see a reversal of ease of use and how the basically these platforms wrap around a user's natural ideation and thought flow.
Hmm. Given your deep history in both gaming and blockchain, it would be fascinating to hear what you think the future is for the maybe the future re-intersection of these in your in either Blockade Labs or just in general for the market.
I think that the obvious overlapping areas are data. Like, where did data come from? If I'm a creator and I want to contribute data, I have some provable on-chain way of doing this. There's when you have a model or a special style, being able to fork and remix, the ability of creating. So, like, even with us, we create custom styles. I could see users wanting to themselves create their own custom styles from existing libraries. So in the way that you can think of like the stock photo, online stock photo collections and libraries together, what if you could, like from these different asset libraries, generate where they came from and create your own, but now I have a license to also distribute my own custom style that I have mixed. I think that
Mm.
even in music, like you're going to see things like this. So I think proof of origin is going to be something people will at least explore, try, even though it's going to be very difficult to do. Like who's gonna validate this? Um,
Hmm.
but I also think that things like with what we're doing, I think seeding ecosystems with tokens for generation purpose, so using GPUs to generate, I do think that there's some opportunity for also using what we know with blockchain and traditional mining networks with how
Hmm.
people have run transactions, and how can you incorporate generating as an on-chain activity that you're also transacting with that then services potentially people who are contributing GPU usage to the network to make it more scalable. I think, and there's also there's going to be a problem with data storage. So, are we going to be able to use our different decentralized data storage for on-chain or off-chain for these large amounts of content that are going to be generated in a way that's more affordable? Because the centralized companies it's going to be very expensive for startups if you have people capable of creating millions of assets per person. Uh, like, who's going to pay for that?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Outside of like blockchain storage being a problem, are there any other kind of industry hurdles to tackle in terms of getting this kind of technology to people or getting the workflows to be smooth enough so that no coders like myself can easily, create a kind of world and use it somewhere?
Yeah, well, I think that's the whole purpose of what we're trying. So, in thinking of like Roblox and UEFN, people are already doing this, creating their environments. So, we're thinking about how much do we just want to stay in our lane as far as being this environment backdrop, and where's the value of starting to stretch that out and bring it forward in those different no code platforms. So, like for the no coder, right? Like which capability, we don't want you to have to go into a 3D engine and have to have these different skills in order to access those 3D qualities of what we're doing. How do we bridge that gap? Um, and
Hmm.
connect. Yeah, so that's something we are spending a bit of time thinking about, and I don't, without creating our own 3D engine for that purpose, I'm not sure if yeah, that's just something we're thinking about and haven't necessarily solved yet. Even though we know you could go in as a 3D developer and evoke these qualities, we're thinking about that no coder for, like you said, like I don't know if you saw this, Angela, but there was a company called Illumina AI who used us in our mesh generation, building on top of us. So not just generating the background and the world, but it also brought the mesh using a shader, a mesh to reality also, all in 15 seconds. And then you could drop an avatar in and run around the world and climb the walls. Uh, and so like that sort of capability is possible today. Other people can build this too, but do users? Is that what even users really want? Like, no, what do the no coders, if they don't actually want to build a game? How far do they want to take the idea for just for fun world building generation? Because I think like we want to stop wherever it is that that user wants to stop, and then because then you can, like I said, people can build out other applications to create the additional utility. But for a no coder, like what is the most fun for you in creating your environment? Like, does that fun mean you have to show it to other people? Does that fun mean you have to be able to invite people into your world to explore? Does that mean you have to have a game of some sort? Like, or yeah, just how fast, how long lived is that process?
I was just saying it's really exciting though because you are the first step. The skybox is really the first thing a no coder would think to do, and then you will almost be on this journey with the no coder, so you could kind of see, hey, we could add that, and that could be a part of the offering as well. So it could be a very organic process.
I think Skybox to social media like Snapchat or Instagram would be a really interesting pipeline. Just because I was trying to think of like, okay, what's the most world building thing that I do every day, And it's almost like, going to Snapchat and putting a filter on is an easy example of like that changes your whole world. Other people can experience it and put a filter on it. So if you could add a different element of something beyond like, putting a filter on your face, like being in a world and moving around with someone, I guess there's kind of an AR crossover, but just something that came into my head.
We actually do have that. So we have a company called Skyglass who's building it with us, who is auto replacing your background and bringing in one of our Skyboxes. But think about Twitch streamers, right? Like anybody who's doing the auto replace of a background, they can auto. So we could be piped directly into Twitch, and you could change your background to set the mood. But also, there's an AI that helps with the auto relighting of your face to match the background too. So those, like we were talking about earlier, we can be modular in the sense that we're just focusing on your environment capture, and how you're using us can be wildly broad. So there was also, I wanted to say, there's some like sets, like virtual sets is a big, so virtual production in general. And then like you said, the more social virtual sets, people have, there's somebody called Flipside XR who is using us and then replacing you with, like, let's say it's a black and white environment, and then you've just replaced yourself with like this black and white avatar, and now you're operating in this scene you've just whipped together and able to record and capture content. So and then Niantic acquired Eighth Wall. Eighth Wall being an AR tooling software, if you're familiar. And so people are doing like portals with us with Eighth Wall, where you are making like these doors, and then you open the door, and behind it is a whole world that's been generated for users. And so, yeah, it's just like AR, XR, VR, game
Wow.
dev, virtual production, social. It's really definitely in virtual environments. And how much do we think with the future of UGC, because I bucket all of this under UGC, right? This is all user driven, UGC, and their various favorite platforms of choice for virtual world creation. We know that market today is 6 billion, and we know it's set to grow to 35 billion by 2030. And so if we can sit at that intersection of, like you said, where's the first place you want to go to think of your virtual world creation process, and being that pipeline for UGC, then I think that we have a lot of potential here to build a UGC competitive platform.
I love the fact that you have created so many partnerships and so many kind of collaborations and really kind of seeded the market with your Skyboxes and with the Blockade Labs, because it's just so early. Like you said, 6 billion going to 35 billion. I mean, it's big, but it's growing so quickly, and it feels like going to be an overnight success that really required a lot of preparation. So kudos to you, Marguerite, for laying the groundwork with so many different partners. That's exciting.
Yeah, well, it's nice. But we had a lot of inbound too. People were like, "Our users are using this," and we got a lot of the larger platforms knocking on our door because of that.
That's
I did.
exciting.
I wanted to say, like, some of the, like, in pulling through some of my historical work, so, not historical, but my past work with like NFTs, for example. You would think that there's a natural overlap here for NFT use cases, but I think what we're going to see is, I think we're going to see generative AI breathe life into into the NFT space again, but I think it's going to be a little bit different this time. So last time there was this whole idea of like scarcity to create value for NFTs, whereas like with a lot of the work we did for our free to play games, we always had a mindset of abundance of NFTs, abundance of creation, trying to be inclusive and inclusive of all the different types of audiences around the world that might not be as financially capable of participating, and how do you onboard them. So I think, like with generative AI, you're also democratizing the UGC side of this, so that opens up all of these folks that had gathered around their different metaverses of choice, be it spatial, on cyber, Decentraland, and those different users now will be able to participate in growing those ecosystems creatively, in addition to the other tools that those platforms have built. And I think that that's going to help lift some of the burden of a lot of those platforms who were dependent on the financial standings of their assets. And so we'll see if users can get over the hurdle of like maybe these assets may never be worth millions and millions of dollars, but it's really fun as an experience in co-creating with the ecosystems.
You're definitely speaking to the right people because, I entered the space in 2018 through my lens was this is going to be digital identity in the same way, people spend $5 billion on skins with Epic Games at the time. People are going to want to create more and more and more around their identity, be it avatars, skins, what environments, whatever. So, yeah, I mean, it feels like this democratization of content creation and the creators having more power in creating these worlds is that's an unstoppable move, and you're kind of right in the middle of it. So thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to watching your success unfold. Best of luck to you in the future with everything you're doing with Blockade Labs, and we look forward to having you back.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much.